Hello, hidden gems. Hello, hello. What a day in court. And we're going to go over it all. We heard from Kouri Richins herself. We also heard from her children. We heard from her family. We heard from Eric Richins' family. Today's Eric Richins' birthday. And then, of course, we heard from the judge who sentenced Kouri. We'll get to that. It was a very big day in court. Very big day. Just realized my mic's a little far from me. Let me lift this up. I would definitely want to make sure my mic works well today because for half of the day in court, as many of you noticed, the mic wasn't working as well. So I think everybody can hear me. Hello. Thank you to our moderators today too. It's been a while since I've been live and we're going to go through this together though. And sentencing started with Kouri walking into court in her jail uniform. No more street clothes for Kouri after the verdict. But one thing that immediately stood out that was also different to me was her appearance, not just the fact that there were no street clothes. Throughout the entire trial, all of her hearings, everything, she almost always wore her hair pulled back in those really tight updos, those tight sort of formal buns. Well, today though, she had it down. And honestly, I think it completely changes how she came across on camera. She looked softer, more approachable, less severe, less businesslike. I really don't know why she chose the super tight hairstyles throughout the trial. Perhaps it was because of a lack of hair dryer. That was always my guess. I don't know. But this look gave off a very different impression, however, and I wonder if it was recommended to her. But also, that impression, that softer impression, changed pretty quickly after victim impact statement started. So in walks Kouri, looking softer, and then boom, we're hit with victim impact statements. The courtroom itself was already clearly divided. Kouri's mother and supporters sat in the back 2 rows while Eric's family and friends filled the first rows closest to the front, right? Judge Richard Mrazek started things off by laying down ground rules. He explained that prosecutors would be calling victims and family members to speak, and Kouri would also have an opportunity to speak if she chose to. Yeah, and spoiler alert, she chose to for a long time. We'll get to it. He reminded everyone that despite how emotional the hearing was, there could be absolutely no outward reactions in the courtroom. No crying out, no shaking heads, no visible anger. But Kouri clearly didn't follow those instructions, which you will see shortly. Judge Mrazek said that everyone deserved respect, even during this emotionally charged situation. And was it ever emotionally charged? He also mentioned there would be a restitution hearing later on July 31st. So there won't be any talk about money today, only justice for Eric. And then Bloodworth, the prosecutor, asked for what's called a continuance protective order. Basically, he wanted the judge to rule that Kouri could not contact her children unless the boys themselves initiated the contact first. But Judge Mrazek seemed hesitant right away. He basically said that he was not convinced the law actually allowed him to grant that kind of order. Bloodworth argued that while technically under Utah law, Eric was the direct victim, the children and the rest of the family were victims too. Well, Kathy Nestor, Kouri's defense attorney, agreed with the judge on this and said the court could not legally impose that restriction. Nestor argued that under Bloodworth's request, Kouri wouldn't even be able to send her sons a birthday card, though. Well, the judge tried to narrow the issue and basically said, hey, let's take the children out of this discussion for now and only focus on Eric's siblings. He pointed out Kouri had not lost her parental rights and said those issues belonged in juvenile court, not criminal court. Nestor added that Kouri had no plans to contact Eric's family anyway, and Mrazek said he didn't like what he was about to say, but legally, he could not grant a protective order for Eric's family and children. He said that the legislature needed to fill this gap explicitly because the law currently doesn't address situations like this clearly enough. He did add that Eric's family could potentially qualify for a stalking injunction later, and that juvenile court could still put restrictions in place regarding the children. And then the judge asked Nestor if she had reviewed the pre-sentence report with Kouri. Nestor said yes, but said that they believe there are some inaccuracies in it. And we We went over that pre-sentence report with all of you. You can find a link to that here in the description of this episode once we're done, or we'll throw it into the live chat for a little link. It was quite a sentencing memorandum. And so now Kouri's attorneys are saying, hey, look, there are some inaccuracies in that report. But regardless, after that, Prosecutor Bloodworth stood up to speak, and he did not ease into his statement at all. He started by saying that on Valentine's Day, 2022, Kouri had tried and failed to murder Eric, and then later she succeeded in murdering Eric. He said that she used poison and did it for money. And I have to say, while Bloodworth was speaking, Kouri could not seem to control her face or outrage. At moments, she almost looked smug. In some parts, it seemed that Bloodworth was reading directly from the sentencing memorandum that we talked about yesterday, especially when he delivered this harsh line. Such a person like Kouri should never lurk among the rest of us. What a word, lurk. He did not use the term walk. He used the term lurk. We've all heard that. Someone should never walk among the rest of us. But he switched that to lurk. Really, honestly, it was some dehumanizing language. Understand the prosecution's trying to gain sympathy. They're trying to lay what they think the sentencing should be. But that was quite a bold statement. Kouri should never lurk among the rest of us. He followed it by saying her children should never have to worry about encountering her again one day. And then he argued that because of all of those reasons and boundless other reasons, the state was asking for life without parole. Life without parole. He also brought up restitution. The state wants Kouri ordered to repay insurance companies and Summit County for trial costs. Don't know how she does that, but they want it. And then he ended his remarks with another very powerful line. Kouri Richins earned this sentence. Her children deserve it. Only this court can grant it. Deserve the sentence of life without parole. And at that point, Bloodworth explained the order of victim impact statements. He said Jean Richins would speak first, followed by Katie Richins Benson, Clint Benson, and Amy Richins, and also pointed out that the greatest victims in this case were Eric's 3 young sons. Absolutely they are, because in his words, Kouri had taken both parents from them. Their statements will be relayed through their therapists. And then Jean Richins walked to the podium. Eric's father, such a heartbreaking visual to see. A father always believes that he's going to die before his son, right? And then here's a father who's coming up to the podium to speak of his son on his birthday, who's no longer with him. And he started by saying that no parent should ever have to bury their child, and that this kind of loss changes you forever. He described Eric first and foremost as an incredible father. He said Eric's boys were his entire world, and that they did not just see him as a dad. They saw him as their best friend, their mentor, coach, and mostly their protector. Jean painted this picture of Eric being deeply involved in every aspect of their lives. And one detail that was very clearly important to Eric was sports. And Jean said that Eric coached not just his own sons, but all of the kids on the teams. He said Eric cared about building character and friendship and helping kids become kind and capable people. Jean said the teams still break their huddles by yelling, 1, 2, 3, Eric, which just shows like the emotional weight of Eric's absence. Jean talked about how proud he was watching Eric become a father. He described him as patient, loving, generous, hardworking, respected in business, and someone who treated everyone with kindness. He said Eric gave his family a beautiful life, worked hard for them, treated his wife with love every day. And despite all of that, his life was taken by the person he should have trusted most. Jean said Eric was betrayed in the most unimaginable way possible. And while he said that, I really watched Kouri's face closely, because there were moments during these victim impact statements when it was hard not to notice her expressions. Take a listen. I want to know what you guys think.
Eric will never see his boys graduate, get married, or become fathers themselves. He will never again stand on the sidelines cheering them on. He will never offer guidance, encouragement, or love in any way that only a father can. That opportunity was stolen from him and from all of us. Because of the calculated and intentional nature of this crime, I respectfully ask the court to impose a sentence of life without the possibility of parole. This sentence is important to Eric's 3 sons never have to live with the fear that the person responsible for taking their father could ever harm them again, and to ensure she can never harm anyone else ever again.
Wow. I don't know if you saw her face. It was a little covered by the logo there, the Court TV, but I saw it. Just, I don't know, just she couldn't hide her emotions. Monty, thank you, by the way. He just found out that you can click the little arrow and it will give you a link so you can share this live with your friends. Who knew? I appreciate that, Monty. Thank you. So please, yeah, let your friends know that we are here and live going over this full sentencing. There's a lot to go over. All right. So Jean said that Eric's life was taken for greed. That was really the core argument from the prosecution all along. Money, insurance, money, control over assets, financial motives. And he ended by also asking for life without parole because he said it was necessary to protect Eric's sons and protect everyone else from Kouri ever harming anyone again. And then Jean went through a long list of thank yous. Prosecutors, investigators, detectives, family, advocates, jurors, the private investigator for their family, Todd Daybell, and the judge himself. You could tell the family viewed this case as years of work finally reaching its conclusion. And he closed by saying, accountability matters, justice matters, and Eric matters. And then after that, it was Katie Richins' turn. Katie Richins Benson, Eric's sister, approached the podium. And Katie's statement was incredibly emotional, but also very direct. She started by thanking everyone involved in the case: law enforcement, prosecutors, expert witnesses, family, friends, the jury, and the judge. And then she pointed out that today is Eric's birthday. Katie started crying, and she talked about how Eric should have been there himself, but instead had been taken away from everyone who loved him, especially his sons. She described Eric as her protector and one of her closest friends. She said they were inseparable growing up. He was Richie and she was Little Richie, clearly a nod to their last name and nickname, Richie and Little Richie. And she pushed back against how Kouri and her team portrayed Eric during the trial. Katie said that Eric was not the person Kouri tried to paint him as and called those portrayals vile attempts to shift blame. Yeah. Watch Kouri as Katie talked about this. Watch this.
Loved. Eric's life and his actions and the profound impact he had on those around him speak for themselves, and they tell a story of goodness, strength, and character that cannot be rewritten or diminished. The saddest part for me in all of this is that I got something with Eric that his sons never did: time. I feel cheated that I only got to spend a few decades with my brother, but I should feel lucky in comparison. As Eric's eldest son told me shortly after his dad's death, he and his brothers did not even get 10 years with their dad. It is devastating that Eric is not here to coach them, to work the family ranch with them, to teach them how to drive, to attend their high school graduation, to send them off to college, to see them get married, or to celebrate the births of his future grandchildren. His 3 sons are going to grow up and live nearly their entire lives without their dad. They're going to get to know their dad more from the stories we tell about them than their actual experiences. In all likelihood, by the time they are each 44 years old, which is how old Eric would be today, they will have little to no actual memories of Eric. And they have to go through life without their dad because their mother planned and carried out his murder. She could not have done anything more selfish or more cruel to those boys. In the place of a stable, secure, and loving home, Kouri gave the boys permanent trauma. They were in the house the night she killed their father. They were awake. They knew that something terrible had happened to their dad. As we heard on the 911 call during trial, one of them even walked into Eric's bedroom, where Eric's body lay dead, poisoned by someone who his son should have been able to unconditionally trust, love, and depend on. No child should have to bear that trauma. But Eric's 3 innocent sons will bear that burden, and they will bear it for the rest of their lives. Kouri's selfishness and cruelty did not end with Eric's murder. In the time after Eric's death, Kouri has done nothing but isolate, manipulate, deceive, and do harm to those boys. Almost immediately after Eric died, she cut them off completely from our family, from Eric's family. The isolation was calculated and strategic. Kouri used the boys as bargaining chips with my dad. She repeatedly threatened not to let him see his grandsons unless he could convince me, as Eric's trustee of his trust, to capitulate to her legal demands and give her all the trust assets. While isolating the boys, Kouri provided them with false and harmful information about me and my family. When DCFS took custody of the boys following Kouri's arrest and asked where they would like to go, they expressed fear of my family. The fear was not based on reality, but on what they had been told. For over a year, Kouri led them to believe that I hated them, that I was attempting to take Eric's money for myself, and that I intended for them to be left without support, that they would be homeless and starving. These statements were entirely false and had no basis in reality. Had they not been subjected to that influence, they would have known the truth.
Wow. You know, Katie said the saddest thing and yeah, Kouri's face there, right? She couldn't even hide it. And Katie said the saddest thing for her was that she got something Eric boys never would, and that's time. She shared something the oldest son reportedly told her, that he didn't even get 10 years with his dad. Katie, so sad. Katie talked about how by the time the boys reach Eric's age, they may even barely remember him. And honestly, it is devastating to think about that. She accused Kouri of giving the boys permanent trauma instead of a stable, loving home. And then Katie started getting into the financial and custody issues that happened after Eric's death. She claimed that Kouri immediately cut the boys off from Eric's family and used them as bargaining chips to gain access to their trust assets. According to Katie, Kouri told the boys they would end up homeless and starving, and that it would be Katie's fault. She also talked about the lawsuits. She said Kouri drained bank accounts Eric had set up for the boys and sued multiple times trying to access assets meant for them. Katie said repeatedly that the money was not going to her or Jean or Eric's sisters. It was supposed to go to Eric's children. And honestly, you could hear how angry and exhausted she was talking about civil litigation. She said every dollar spent fighting those lawsuits was money the boys would never get. And then she brought up the infamous walk the dog letter. Katie said that Kouri planned to target her daughters and said, "It takes a sick mind to target kids." Take a listen.
My sister. In fact, she knows exactly where Eric wanted everything to go, and that is to his boys. And yet, for 4 years, she has aggressively tried to take their inheritance from them. Even now, despite erroneous debt, a murder conviction, and a string of pending felony financial charges, Kouri's civil lawsuits live on. Those lawsuits have been emotionally grueling, all-consuming, and unimaginably expensive. And tragically, every dollar on those suits is a dollar that Eric's boys will not get. Of course, Kouri can't have other people or the public thinking that she's trying to take away her children's inheritance. So for the past 4 years, both in court and in the media, she has demonized and vilified me. She has hurled wild accusations in my direction, including that I hacked her bank accounts, forged her bank statements, paid off witnesses, unduly pressured law enforcement into investigating her, and quietly pulled the Summit County prosecutor's strings. It is despicable that for doing nothing more than trying to honor Eric's wishes, Kouri has cast me as the evildoer here. Just as bad, honoring Eric's wishes has landed my sister and myself and unbelievably my 2 daughters in Kouri's crosshairs. One of Eric's sons recently told me that Kouri used to say, "I will get them one day." Apparently, she was talking about me, my sister, and my daughters. Her infamous walk the dog letter, the part the jury did not hear, confirms her desire to harm me. In it, she talks at length about her plans to get at Amy and me, including by targeting my daughters, both of whom are under the age of 10. It takes a sick mind to target children. The mere thought that someone who has so little regard for human life or decency might one day walk free is horrifying.
Kouri is an angry elf there. You can't hide it. Angry elf. All right. Katie basically argued there was no line Kouri would not cross if it served her interest. And she said the boys lived in fear that Kouri might one day show up and take them away. And then Katie discussed the fact that Eric had consulted a divorce attorney before his death. According to Katie, Eric told her he wanted out of the marriage, but was terrified of shared custody because he believed Kouri was dangerous. Katie claimed Eric told her he would rather live through hell every single day until the youngest child turned 18 than risk leaving the boys alone with Kouri half the time. She said that Eric believed Kouri was the most evil person he had ever met. Wow. Take a listen.
I begged him to end the marriage and go his separate way. By that point, he had already consulted with a divorce attorney and was deeply afraid that he might not be awarded sole custody of his children. He made the heartbreaking decision to stay because he could not accept the risk of what might happen to his sons if Kouri had equal custody. He told me he would live his life through hell every single day of his life until his youngest was 18 because he believed Kouri was the most evil person he had ever met. He knew that his sons did not like her. He told me as much many times. He knew that they would prefer to be far away from her. But he also knew that divorce carried significant risks. And he said he could never allow his children to spend half of their time alone with her because he was certain they would be exposed to harm and things no child should ever experience. He made it clear that in his mind, if Kouri were given equal custody, his children would be in the care of someone he believed to be deeply dangerous. He feared the people they could be exposed to and the damage that could be done. At the same time, he spoke with deep love and admiration for his boys. He told me that they were the most amazing boys in the world and that none of this was their choice and none of it was their fault, and that he would do everything in his power to protect.
Wow. Katie ended by addressing the media attention around the case. She basically said, yes, Kouri was right that this case became a worldwide media sensation. She said Kouri became famous because prosecutors alleged she poisoned her husband, wrote a grief book afterward, searched luxury prisons, and traumatized her children. And then Katie closed by pleading with the judge not to reduce Eric's life to what she called nothing more than a 25-year punishment. She basically said this was about protecting not only Eric's sons, but future grandchildren, extended family, and anyone else Kouri could potentially harm. She asked for life without parole, so there would never again be an opportunity for Kouri to endanger the people Eric loved. And before we go any further, we are going to take a quick break and hear from one of our sponsors. Thank you for everyone supporting this live stream and our wonderful partners who make this trial coverage possible. There's something about long recording days where you suddenly realize coffee is no longer helping. It's just making you anxious and hungry at the same time. This podcast is sponsored by Brodo, and lately this has become one of Dr. John's favorite things to keep in his office while he works. And honestly, I get it now too. It actually tastes incredible. Not healthy food good, just genuinely rich, savory, comforting, especially on busy days when you need something warm that doesn't leave you crashing later. And John's biggest issue with coffee is the crashing later. This does not have it. It's perfect. And it's one of those really simple habits that feels good too. Each cup has about 10 grams of protein, collagen building amino acids, and nutrients that support gut health and overall wellness. It just feels more grounding than grabbing another coffee or random snack. Shop the best broth on the planet with Brodo. Head to brodo.com/HTC for 20% off your first subscription order and use code HTC for an additional $10 off. Once again, that's brodo.com/HTC for 20% off your first subscription order and an additional $10 off if you use my promo code HTC. And then Clint Benson, Katie's husband, took the podium. Clint's statement was shorter, but extremely blunt. He talked about how Eric's death was not quick, not merciful. He said it was carried out in a way that caused fear, suffering, and pain. He said while Eric was dying from fentanyl poisoning, Kouri was already fantasizing about her dream life without him and sat by until he died.
What makes this tragedy even more painful is the calculated nature of the crime. This was not a momentary mistake, a lapse in judgment, or a crime of passion. It involved planning, preparation, testing, and deliberate action. Eric's death was carried out in a way that caused fear, suffering, and helplessness. Kouri either watched or sat by as Eric succumbed to fentanyl poisoning instead of providing any kind of aid to him. She was fantasizing about a dream life funded by Eric's death. Eric was killed in his home by a traitor sleeping next to him in one of the most cowardly acts imaginable.
That line really painted the picture prosecutors have pushed from the very beginning, that while Eric trusted her, she was already emotionally checked out and envisioning a completely different future. Clint thanked law enforcement, experts, jurors, the judge, and everyone involved in uncovering the truth. He also made a point to thank the community surrounding Eric's boys. He said the boys were succeeding and thriving. I don't know, these boys just, every time they bring it up, it makes me emotional, but they were succeeding and thriving because of the support system around them and because people were constantly looking out for their safety. And then Clint spoke directly toward Kouri's behavior after Eric's death. He said Kouri had shown zero accountability or remorse. He accused her of constantly distorting the truth and continuing to portray herself as the victim. He also says she weaponized the legal system itself through endless lawsuits and blame shifting. He said there was still hostility coming from Kouri and even from members of her family toward Eric's family. And then he referenced statements they made about going to war and getting the Richins. Clint said that Kouri continued trying to present herself publicly as a good mother, but in his opinion, she was a sick and evil person. He accused her of choosing greed, lust, adultery, prioritizing her lover, and ultimately murder over her family.
Kouri will continue to try to convince the public that she was a good mother through media outlets that choose not to research or report on the countless motions and facts presented in this case or other cases, but instead simply regurgitate the false narratives of a sick and evil person. Kouri and her family continue to plan media campaigns focused on lies, targeting anyone foolish enough to spend time listening to them. Kouri is not before this court because she was mistreated, because she is a victim, or because the Richins family manufactured a false narrative that she and the Darden family would like to portray. She is before this court because of the choices she has made, choices that resulted in Eric's death and permanent trauma to anyone who has loved him. Kouri chose pride, seeking to project an image of success. Kouri chose adultery and lust, prioritizing her secret lover over her husband and her children. Kouri chose fraud and greed, hoping to profit from Eric's death. Kouri chose murder, and she continues to choose vengeance against the victims of her actions. The time for Kouri to make choices is at an end. Now it is time for her victims to choose. Please let Eric's children have a chance to choose lifelong peace, comfort, security, success, and happiness. I ask this court to impose a sentence of life without parole, a sentence that truly reflects the gravity of this crime, the irreversible harm caused to our family, and the calculated choices that led to Eric's death.
Then Clint asked the judge for life without parole. After he finished, Amy Richins walked up to speak. Amy's statement talked not only about her brother Eric, but about the ripple effect this case has had on absolutely every aspect of their family's lives. She started by reminding everyone, again, that this was Eric's 44th birthday. It's another birthday he would never get to celebrate with his sons. And Amy described Eric as outgoing, funny, competitive, dependable, fiercely loyal, hardworking, and deeply protective of the people he loved. She called him a leader, a rancher, a coach, a businessman, best friend, brother, and son. But she said, above everything else, people described him as a phenomenal father. Amy shared a story. I love this story. Amy shared a story about being in school one day when Eric texted her and told her to come outside. So she walks outside and he has flowers in his hands for her, for his sister. And this was to celebrate her buying her first truck. And Eric immediately tells her, hey, we need to go out. We need to get a little mud on the tires. And then she says they drove up into the mountains and went off-roading. And the way she describes this, it just paints such a clear picture of who Eric was to her. She said it was exhilarating and terrifying at the same time, but she felt safe because he was there. And then she described her take from this, that was Eric, that he made life bigger. He made people feel brave. That was a really beautiful way to describe someone, honestly. But then her statement went from beautiful memories to something much, much darker. Amy said she was still tormented by the sequence of events in this case. She wondered when Eric realized that he was in danger. She wondered what Kouri said to him in his final moments. She wondered whether the boys heard him struggling. I wonder too. One of those little boys we learned from the sentencing memorandum tried to unlock the locked door that night. I wonder too. She said if Eric had died from illness, they could have cared for him. If it had been an accident, there would at least be some comfort in knowing nobody intended it. But she said there was no comfort here because this was intentional. Then she made a really powerful point about the boys' grief. She said their grief would never truly pass. It's true. It would reinvent itself over and over at every life milestone. And honestly, that is probably true. Every graduation, every birthday, every wedding, every major life event, Eric's absence is going to resurface again and again and again for these boys. Amy said Eric's death did not end the trauma. It began a grinding process of re-traumatization. She also talked about how the family had to grieve publicly while under nonstop media scrutiny. And it's true. I cannot imagine that. Then she said something really disturbing. Take a listen.
After the publication of the grief book, our family became the subject of public narratives, attacks, and speculation. At one point, I received a message sent from a burner phone that said, "You think you're funny? Kouri will get the last laugh. Your jealousy is as disgusting as your family." Law enforcement later confirmed through warrants that the message came from Kouri. That moment stayed with me because it captured what these years have felt like. Not just grief, but intimidation and distortion. Yes, our family hired a private investigator, but when someone you love dies suddenly and deep in your gut, you believe something is terribly wrong, you do not stop searching for answers. The real question is not why would you investigate? The real question is, what wouldn't you do? What wouldn't you do for your brother, for the truth?
For the truth, what would you do? And then she said something that felt very, well, it was directed toward the future. She said that one day Eric's boys would grow up and they would look back through the records of this case. And she wanted the truth to be what they found online when they Googled this case. She accused the defense of attacking Eric's character not as legitimate legal defenses, but as acts of secondary violence. And that phrase really stood out to me. It impacted me greatly, actually. Secondary acts of violence. When people smear someone's character online, it is an act of violence. I agree with Amy there. And then Amy said that she wanted to clear up some lies.
I also need to correct the record on a few misrepresentations. First, the prenup. It was provided well before the wedding, not in a last-minute way. Second, the incident between Kouri and me. I never touched her. Kouri pled guilty to assaulting me. Yet she and her circle have continued to spread false narratives. This is a pattern of distortion that has kept our family trapped in conflict. There is something that has haunted me for years. And I found out Katie was the exact same today. I begged Eric to leave too. I begged him to divorce her. But Eric was trying to protect his boys. People often struggle to recognize intimate partner violence when the victim is a man. But Eric's actions spoke for themselves. He documented conversations. He tried to protect himself. He knew after Valentine's Day that she had tried to poison him, but he also believed that if he left, he could not fully protect his children. So he stayed because he was trying to keep them safe.
Eric, Amy said that like Katie, she personally begged Eric to leave Kouri. She admitted she carried guilt because Eric ultimately stayed. And then her statement took another heartbreaking turn. She said the stress and trauma surrounding this case infiltrated every aspect of her life. She said she lost her job as a professor in Montana the same day that she was subpoenaed to testify. She also suffered a traumatic miscarriage of twins. She said, "We lost our children. We lost the future we were building." She said Kouri's actions did not just end Eric's life, they rippled outward and destroyed other futures too. But she also talked about grieving Kouri herself. She said that before all of this, Kouri was not just her sister-in-law, she was a friend. They had happy memories together. This family once genuinely loved Kouri. They vacationed together, raised children together, celebrated holidays together. And now everything is destroyed. Amy said that grieving someone who is still alive is a unique kind of pain that sits heavy every day. She ended by saying that Eric died trying to shield his children, and now it was the court's responsibility to protect the children instead. And then she asked for life without parole. After Amy finished, the courtroom then went into what, in my opinion, was the most difficult part. It was also the most impactful part of this entire sentencing hearing. The victim impact statements from Eric and Kouri's sons. And I want to play these in full because for so long, these boys have been silenced throughout all of this. We've actually learned through the sentencing memorandum that one of the boys even debunked Kouri's alibi of her not sleeping next to him at night. But clearly they didn't want to bring the boys into the trial, right? Protecting the boys, understandably. And so now I think it's so important to listen to these three boys because, yes, they are, in my opinion, the biggest victims throughout all this. But first, Jessica Black, a registered therapist, approached first and explained that she would read the first statement from WR. Let's take a listen.
After a developmentally appropriate process, the boys were able to decide individually how they wanted to share their statements, and this is what they chose. Our roles are to read their words exactly as they wrote. The boys want the court and the world to hear their side. This is from WR. I woke up to sirens, and there were a lot of people at my house, and I was definitely scared. I felt confused. I was in a bedroom with my brothers, and I didn't know what was happening. At first, I was really scared because I didn't know what was happening, and I had no control, and I felt helpless. I felt really overwhelmed. After my dad died, Kouri would put us in the basement while she was with the neighbor. I felt scared because I thought something really bad was happening again. She would take me to places that smelled really bad. Everything she did made me feel uncomfortable. When someone talks about Kouri, it makes me feel hateful and ashamed. She took away my dad. It's made me have a hard time trusting people. I was scared that Kouri's family would come to my school and take me. I had to go to counseling with DCFS in Heber, and I did not like it. DCFS made me talk to Kouri, and I couldn't do things that I wanted to do. I felt not important to anyone. I feel a lot better about myself now than I did with Kouri. I can't ever see my dad again. I want her to go to prison forever. If she got out, I would be so scared, really mad, and I wouldn't want to go with her anywhere. I'm worried that she would take me away from Katie and Clint. Once she is gone, I will feel happy, and I will feel safer and relaxed and trust people more.
Thank you.
After that, Christina Green read a statement from AR.
Christina.
Yes, Your Honor. I am Christina Green. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, not registered plea therapist, and I will be reading for AR. You took away my dad for no reason other than greed, and you only cared about yourself and your stupid boyfriends. You were not caring and watching over me and my brothers. I had to be a parent to W. C and I would walk him to the bus stop, feed him, and watch him. You were not concerned about our health. When we got hurt, you didn't even care. When C got run over by a side-by-side, you still made him go to the soccer game that day without taking him to the doctors first. You would lock C in his room, and I would have to go to the kitchen and bring him food. You shamed us when we didn't want to eat uncooked lasagna you made. We threw it away because we couldn't eat it. Then you made us watch videos of children starving in war areas. You wanted to scare us into eating something that wasn't cooked. You wouldn't let our dog outside, and then the dog would pee inside. You created this problem, then you would smack my dog on the head as hard as you could. You wouldn't let me put my kitten in the garage for safety at night, and we found it eaten by raccoons the next day. You wouldn't let us turn on and use the heater lamp for the chickens and bunnies, and they froze to death. You would always argue with my dad and lock the door. You were not playing the role as a real mother does. You were doing the opposite. Now my dad can't be my coach anymore, can't be at any of my games. He won't be at my birthdays. He can't teach me how to drive. He won't be at my graduation, and he can't take me camping or fishing. You made me paranoid about sleeping on my dad's side of the bed by saying I might die or get harmed when I was just trying to be close to my dad after you killed him. You took away everything from me and my brothers. I don't want you out of jail because I will not feel safe if you are out. You have never said sorry for anything that you have done to me and my brothers. I don't want you to hurt anyone again. I know that you will need to stay in jail to fully take accountability for what you did to me, C, W, and my dad. With you in jail, I will be able to continue to feel safe and live a happy and successful life without fear of you hurting me or anyone I love. Thank you, Your Honor.
And then another advocate named Sarah read the final statement from CR, who is now 13 years old. And he was, who we mentioned, wore Eric's clothes sometimes to school to feel close to him. Let's take a listen.
Yes, my name is Sarah. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and registered plea therapist, and I'm going to read the victim impact statement for CR. My name and age now, my name and age I was at the time of the crime. CR, age 12, now 13. I was 9 when my dad was murdered. What I would like to see happen if the perpetrator is convicted of the crime, I would like to see Kouri get a life sentence. My thoughts regarding an appropriate sentence for the person who is accused of this crime and if they are found guilty. I think Kouri should get a life sentence because what she did is very sick. Because it had no reason to happen and it impacted a bunch of people, including me. These are some reasons why I think she should have a life sentence. The information I feel is important for the judge to be aware of in sentencing. I think the judge should know that my dad was a good person and very thoughtful and kind and helped whoever needed help. He was always taking the extra mile to help people. My physical injuries as a result of this crime are as follows. I was sleeping and then I went to get a drink of water, then went back to bed. And when I woke up shaking and Bailey called the ambulance and they came and I couldn't talk for a while, I think Kouri had something to do with it because she didn't call the ambulance. She called Bailey and Bailey called the ambulance. At the ER, Kouri resisted to have my blood drawn. And kids who usually have this kind of seizure is when they are a few months old to a year old. I learned later that Kouri bought more fentanyl and had it in the house when this happened. I think this is what happened. She did what she did to my dad in the living room. My experienced emotional injury because of this crime is described as follows. Sad. I feel mad that I have to feel sad. I went from being scared for my life to feeling really good. I was scared for my life because I didn't eat that much. Kouri was always drunk or gone. I was always locked in my room. I can't remember, but I am pretty sure the lock was on the outside. Kouri threatened she would kill my lizard because we didn't want to watch some weird show with her. All of our chickens died because there was no food or water. My rabbit died because we didn't have food or water. The goats almost starved to death because she bought moldy hay and she didn't water them. Nothing ever got fed or watered. It didn't feel good to worry about my animals. I felt like I had to take care of my siblings. Ash mostly took care of me though because I was locked in my room. Ash would bring me food. Kouri would lock me up if I told her she was drunk. This happened pretty much daily. I feel angry that she locked me in my room. I am angry almost all my animals died. I am angry she threatened to kill them. I am angry she killed my dad. I started to feel really good when I moved into a safe place. It was safe because the people around me were safe, Katie and Clint. I felt safe at Jake and Shalina because I wasn't with Kouri anymore. Counseling. I feel annoyed that I have to go to counseling and tell the story about what happened 55 million times. I feel better now because I know it's to help me. I would like to not have to go to counseling. I would like to have to not worry about anything after this trial is over. I want the judge to know I hope Kouri gets convicted to a life sentence. Kouri is always drunk. I want the judge to know my dad was a good person and I miss my dad. I miss my dad, but I do not miss how my life used to be. I don't miss Kouri. I will tell you that. Thank you.
Brutal. Very brutal. And look, watching Kouri during the boys' statements was something people are going to discuss a lot. I saw all of you in chat just now. But even if she truly believed the boys have been coached or manipulated, because she does believe that, parental alienation is a thing, and I think that's what Kouri believes or is claiming is happening. Whatever she thinks, I think most people, and maybe I assume by most people, and maybe I'm not, my opinion, I would expect a mother to visibly break hearing her children describe being afraid of her or even claiming that they believe she did things. I would expect most. But throughout most of that, Kouri remained composed. She honestly, I don't know what you, tell me what you think in chat. or in comments, she seemed kind of detached or smug or sort of like appalled that her children would be saying these things, similar to her look when she was listening to her once sister-in-laws. But again, these are her kids saying this. I just feel like most mothers would probably break down. It would be so painful to hear that, and then to hear at the end that he does not miss her. Those are her little boys talking about their fear, about their trauma, wanting her imprisoned forever. And from the outside looking in, there just didn't seem to be much visible emotional break from her. However, I will say that she did show some emotion during her own statement. That she did. We will get to that in just a bit. But after the boys' statements, the prosecution said they had no further victim impact statements, and the court went in to recess. And then when everybody returned, the defense finally began presenting its side. All right, here we go. Kathy Nestor stood up and explained that because of the publicity surrounding the case, several people who wrote letters supporting Kouri wanted to keep their identities hidden from camera and public attention. Understandably. She outlined the defense's plan. For the afternoon, Alex Ramos would speak briefly, and then several witnesses, and then Wendy Lewis, defense attorney Wendy Lewis, and then finally, Kouri Richins herself. Yes, Kouri Richins. So Nestor opened with a statement that set the tone for the defense's position moving forward. She said plainly that Kouri did not commit the crimes she was convicted of. And despite everything that had just been said moments earlier by Eric's family and the boys and all those victim impact statements, Nestor told the court, "It is our privilege and honor to stand beside Kouri." Nestor continued by saying the defense fully believes in Kouri's innocence. This was clearly a very sharp tonal change in the courtroom. At least they gave a little bit of a recess before they threw this down, right? Before the transition, because whoa. And also, let's point out that, when defense attorneys defend their clients, I think we oftentimes wonder, do they really think the client's innocent, or are they just saying it because everyone deserves a fair trial? Everyone deserves evidence. Everyone deserves support. But they're stating they believe in her innocence, even after the verdict, not during trial, after the verdict. The defense is also clearly trying to pivot the courtroom away from anger and toward mercy right off the bat. Nestor acknowledged that Judge Mrazek had what she called a sacred duty in sentencing. And then she said the defense had a prayerful hope that mercy would prevail over retribution. That's a quote, a prayerful hope that mercy would prevail over retribution. That wording, very interesting to me, because now we're framing this entire sentencing as a moral crossroads, right? This sentencing was a moral dilemma now for the judge, according to the defense, according to Nestor. Punishment versus mercy, retribution versus hope. Now we're talking moral judgment here that they're putting on the judge. Nestor then started talking about what life without parole would actually look like for Kouri inside prison. She said inmates serving life without parole are essentially locked down for 23 hours a day and in many ways treated similarly to death row inmates. She said there would be no in-person visits and no hope of reunification with loved ones. Again, this is clearly the defense trying to humanize Kouri, again, after a morning filled with testimony portraying her as manipulative, as dangerous, as remorseless. Remorseless is something that just isn't human. Humans have remorse. Someone who shouldn't lurk among other humans. Remember that word lurk that I pointed out from Prosecutor Bloodworth? According to the prosecution, Kouri doesn't even walk. She lurks, according to Prosecutor Bloodworth. And so now the defense is humanizing their client. And they're doing so because they want the judge to picture not just punishment, but permanent isolation of a fully feeling, breathing human being. And then Nestor previewed some of the people that the defense planned to present. They actually had a lot of people. She said one woman lost her son to murder, another had a father who killed her mother, and another was a former prosecutor who personally witnessed rehabilitation in someone once sentenced to life. Message was obvious. People can change. Healing and forgiveness are possible. Life without parole removes any possibility of redemption. Nestor then mentioned Kouri's allocution, meaning her personal statement to the court. She warned everyone it would be long. There you go. Full disclosure here, it's going to be about 30 minutes, and said that Kouri had worked very hard on it. Then the defense started reading support letters. The first was from Kouri's mother, Lisa Darden. Lisa Darden was there every day of Kouri Richins' trial. Wendy Lewis read her letter aloud because Lisa was emotional and worried she would not be able to get through it herself, even though she was sitting there in court and, again, had been in court every day of Kouri's trial. Lisa's letter was very much written from the perspective of a grieving mother and grandmother, trying to remind the court there was another side to Kouri beyond the headlines and the victim impact statements that the courtroom just heard. Lisa started by acknowledging Eric's loss. She said Eric had once saved her life and that she would carry gratitude for him forever. So that just shows how close these families once were before everything collapsed. Lisa then turned her focus to the boys, her grandchildren. She said whatever sentence the judge imposed would shape their lives forever. She talked about losing daily contact with the boys herself and described that separation as devastating. She then tried to also humanize Kouri and explain her daughter was not a monster, but a whole person, a mother, a wife, a daughter, someone who had accomplishments, someone who had relationships, education, and community involvement. Lisa described Kouri helping the boys grieve after Eric's death and said she found creative ways to support them emotionally during that period. Of course, hearing that right after the boys' own statements created a huge contrast because, their experience sounded completely different. And that really became one of the themes of the afternoon, two entirely different versions of Kouri. Not even like overlapping or a Venn diagram, two entirely different versions of Kouri. Lisa talked about Kouri earning her MBA while in jail and obtaining a paralegal certificate. She said Kouri continued pursuing education and self-improvement while incarcerated. And then came a long list of positive things Kouri allegedly did over the years. Volunteering at schools, coaching sports teams, being a scout leader, assembling care kits for people in need, donating snow boots to children. Lisa also defended the grief book that Kouri wrote after Eric's death. She insisted it was never about profit and was only intended to help children process grief. Again, clearly aimed at countering the prosecution's view that the book was exploitative or manipulative. Lisa described Kouri as a loving aunt who organized family gatherings and regularly attended church with her children. These are not isolated gestures, Lisa said. They reflect a long-standing pattern of generosity and care for others. And honestly, you could tell the defense was trying very hard to remind the judge that before this case, Kouri was viewed by many people as involved, active, charitable, nurturing. She then talked about her own relationship with Kouri and described them as extremely close. Said their relationship was built on trust. It was built on love. They relied on one another. She also said Kouri cared for Eric's family after his mother died in Hawaii, providing childcare for relatives, participated in family milestones, and was once viewed as a calming and connecting presence within the Richins family. And honestly, hearing that after Amy and Katie described Kouri as dangerous and manipulative was surreal. It really, again, shows how completely fractured these relationships have become and just how vastly different these two pictures of Kouri are. Again, like this is not a Venn diagram. It's like you're either here or there. She's a monster or she's this person, someone caring and tying a whole family together. Lisa admitted Kouri was not perfect, but she said Kouri supported therapy for the boys and that her concern for them remained constant and unwavering. She also said Kouri was grieving Eric deeply and that despite marital struggles, they had attended counseling and strengthened their relationship. And then Lisa made it very clear she did not believe Kouri committed the crime. She ended by asking the judge for mercy from a mother's heart and pleaded for a sentence that would allow Kouri to still have some presence in her children's lives. After that letter, Kouri's sister, Renee Odom, spoke. Renee started by acknowledging Eric's loss and saying she did not want to minimize the tragedy. Honestly, it kind of sounded like she thinks Kouri may have done this. I don't know what you think. Take a listen.
My name is Renee Odom, and I am here today as the sister of Kouri Richins. I want to begin by saying nothing I share today is meant to excuse or lessen the seriousness of what has brought us here. Eric's life was taken, and that loss is permanent. I want to acknowledge Eric by name and say that I loved him. He was kind to me. He was a part of my life, a part of my children's life, and a part of my family. He matters deeply, and he is missed. This tragedy has devastated our family, and its deepest impact continues to fall on Kouri's 3 boys. For more than 3 years now, they have been unable to see or speak with their mother. They have lost their father, and at the same time, they have lost access to their mom. Even in separation, Kouri has never stopped being their mother. She writes to her boys every single week. She reaches out every birthday, every holiday, holding on to that connection with everything she has and reminding them that they are loved. Kouri is my baby sister, and she has been an integral part of my life and the lives of my children. She has shown up for our family in ways that are impossible to count. I was there at her graduation from high school. I was there for the wedding of Kouri and Eric, moments filled with love, hope, and dreams for the future. She was there for my wedding and the birth of my son. She was there for me when I graduated college. She stood beside me at the baptism of both of my daughters.
And that's when she started focusing heavily on Kouri's role with the family. As you heard there, she said Kouri wrote the boys every week and reached out every holiday and birthday despite the letters reportedly being returned. Renee described Kouri as the glue holding the family together, the person who organized Christmases, vacations, family events, and made sure nobody felt left out. The defense witnesses really, again, leaning into this image of Kouri as deeply family-oriented, a woman who created traditions and cared for everybody around her. Renee then asked directly the judge to see the whole picture, see the full Kouri, in other words. She pleaded for hope that one day Kouri could still have a relationship with her sons. And then she turned toward Kouri and said, "I love you, Kouri, and I will always stand by you." Wow. And before we go any further, we're going to take one more quick break, hear from another one of our last sponsors for the night. Again, another wonderful trial partner who we love supporting. Take a listen. Quick question. Do you actually know if your kids are getting all of the nutrients they need? Because as a mom of one who is an incredibly picky eater and very picky about the taste of vitamins even, I realized we were kind of just guessing. And that's what led me to First Day. It's one of the only vitamin brands I actually feel good about using because they're super transparent about ingredients. There's nothing artificial or unnecessary, and they make different formulas for toddlers, kids, teens, and adults. So it's tailored to your stage of life. And honestly, the biggest win, my son actually likes them, which if you're a parent, you know is half the battle. It's just 2 gummies a day, and it gives me peace of mind that we're covering our bases a little better. For a limited time only, our listeners are getting an insane deal. Use code HIDDEN to get up to 57% off at firstday.com. That's up to 57% off and a free gift with code HIDDEN at firstday.com. After you purchase, they will ask where you heard about them, and please support our show and tell them the Hidden True Crime sent you. Well, next came a letter from Bree Darden, Kouri's sister-in-law, which Kathy Nestor read aloud because Bree had recently given birth and could not attend. Bree said she met Kouri about 8 years ago. She acknowledged the family wasn't perfect, but insisted those boys were deeply loved. She said her heart broke for them because they did not deserve any of this. Bree also described Kouri as one of the most selfless people she knew and referenced what she believed were inconsistencies in the investigation. Again, the defense kept returning to this idea that Kouri, while imperfect, was still deserving of grace and redemption. And then came a letter from Kouri's aunt, Doreen. Doreen was also often in court every day for the trial. Doreen said it was heartbreaking to speak about someone she loved so deeply. She said she was proud to be Kouri's aunt and that the woman she knew was not the monster portrayed during proceedings. Doreen described Kouri as compassionate, intelligent, nurturing, and human. So very humanizing to even just mention she is a human. This was the defense's overall strategy in a nutshell. Humanize, humanize, humanize. Because by this point in the hearing, prosecutors and Eric's family have painted a picture of Kouri as, well, a monster, evil, manipulative, dangerous, greedy. Defense trying to reintroduce empathy into the sentencing conversation. Doreen said the conviction did not erase years of compassion and humanity and reminded the judge that the sentence would affect not only Kouri, but the boys too. And then another letter was read. This one came from someone who had babysat the boys. The writer, who was not identified, understandably, described the home as beautifully decorated with photos of the children everywhere and a huge playroom over the garage. It was almost trying to, again, just try to show how this is an ordinary family and an involved mother behind closed doors. The babysitter even said Kouri once left such detailed meal plans that she later used the recipes herself. That is interesting. And again, very sharp contrast with some of the boys' allegations earlier about neglect and frightening behavior, not even, helping the animals in the house. The writer made clear that they were not minimizing Eric's death, but asked the judge for 25 years to life instead of life without parole. And then Greg Hall addressed the court. Greg is interesting. Greg attended every day of Kouri's trial. Spoke with Greg a bit. And Greg said he had known Kouri both personally and professionally for more than 7 years and remained in contact with her throughout her incarceration. He described Kouri as someone who actively looked for struggling people to help even before her arrest. He said she volunteered with her boys at soup kitchens to teach them kindness and service. Greg also claimed that Kouri sometimes gave up commissions to help families who couldn't afford homes. Then he spoke of her behavior inside jail. And I think this part was meant to show rehabilitation in action, right? How is she going to act behind bars? And Greg described Kouri helping frightened new inmates adjust when they arrived. He said she tutored inmates, helped women continue their education, and even assisted them with writing letters. He also said that when inmates received devastating news from home, Kouri often was the first person to sit with them and comfort them. Again, whether people believe this or not, the defense is trying very hard to present Kouri as someone capable of compassion and growth. Greg said that she studied late into the night, attended church, prayed for her boys daily, and continued writing them even through the letters, even though the letters were allegedly returned unopened. And then he closed with a line that really summed up the defense's message for the day. I'm not here to argue with this verdict of this court. I'm here to tell you that the person I have known for over 7 years is still there, still trying. And this gentleman, I want to say, did help Kouri a lot. We would hear him on the phone with Kouri during trial. He was a good person. He was really trying, really believed in Kouri. And I think Kouri really leaned on him, almost like a father figure. Anyway, Nestor then moved into another round of support letters, this time from people who had invested money with Kouri over the years. And the first letter came from an unnamed investor who basically argued that the public only got one side of the story because the defense rested without presenting a full case during trial. That person said everybody had only heard the negative stuff about Kouri. The writer also pushed back on the narrative that Kouri manipulated people into investing with her. According to the letter, they approached Kouri about investment opportunities, not the other way around. Again, another attempt by the defense to chip away at the image prosecutors had painted of Kouri as this calculating financial opportunist. The writer said Kouri could still positively contribute to society, even from prison, and pleaded with the judge not to take hope away from her completely. And then another investor letter was read, this time from someone who actually lost money working with Kouri. This stands out because you would think someone financially burned by Kouri would be angry. Well, instead, this person still defended her. The writer said they had worked with Kouri on over 10 houses and even joked at one point that they had unofficially adopted her as their daughter. They admitted they never knew Eric personally, but they praised Kouri's work ethic and business skills, and then that they did not believe the prosecution proved the case beyond a reasonable doubt. And again, even during sentencing, the defense side kept subtly sort of like reigniting the trial, right? Verdict's out. She's guilty. Kouri Richins is now a murderer. Yet they kind of kept reigniting this trial of whether or not she really is, saying the prosecution did not prove it beyond a reasonable doubt, openly attacking the verdict. But they were definitely planting the idea that some people are absolutely still questioning the verdict. The investor closed by asking the judge to leave open the possibility of parole someday. And then after that, Nestor read several short statements from jail volunteers. This is to show Kouri's behavior over the last several years in custody, which is important. Risk factor and how people act behind bars is an important part of sentencing. Showing rehabilitation or the ability to rehabilitate. It shows faith. It shows leadership. So an art facilitator, described Kouri as full of grace. Yeah, full of grace. And said she hoped Kouri's heart would continue toward transformation and faith. And then a Bible teacher talked about Kouri regularly attending class and encouraging other inmates to participate in church activities. A jail pastor said Kouri had consistently attended services for 3 years and actively participated in discussions. And then another volunteer named Heidi talked about teaching Kouri in addiction recovery and yoga classes. She described Kouri as a peacemaker who stayed above the petty drama that can happen inside jail units. Again, whether people buy all of that or not, the defense is building this image of a woman who had adapted to incarceration by helping others and leaning into religion and education. And then came one of the more emotional witnesses from the defense side. Kouri's brother, Ronnie, someone who really supports Kouri. Ronnie started talking directly to Kouri. He said, "Little sister, I love you. I miss you." He went through all the little things he missed, their random conversations, game nights, holidays, Sundays together. He even talked about missing Kouri, sending the boys to wake him up on Christmas morning. That one actually was really sad to hear. This family went from, go wake your uncle up on Christmas to both those boys not even having either parent or their Uncle Ronnie anymore. He then brought up Eric too. Ronnie said he missed Eric's family and missed what their combined family used to be before everything happened, understandably. It was actually one of the saddest parts of the day in a weird way because it reminds everyone that these families, again, they were once close. They did these holidays together with traditions. They did backyard games, sports. Ronnie also let me take a listen to this. Right.
I miss you. I miss our random banter. I miss your calls. I miss your constantly over-the-top positive attitude every time we speak. I miss our game nights. I miss Eric's stupid finger gun dance after we won a game. I miss our holidays. I miss you sending the boys to wake me up on Christmas morning. Way too early after we stayed up way too late preparing Christmas for them so that it'd be absolutely perfect. I miss our Sundays together. I miss arguing with the boys about who's better, Messi or Ronaldo, Brady or Rogers. I miss our backyard games. I miss me and the boys running all over you at sports in the backyard and Eric getting mad because you weren't competitive enough and you were really just out there to have fun and laugh. I miss you constantly luring me into your newest ideas and getting me excited about them. I miss vacationing. I miss family volleyball. I miss playing Madden and FIFA with Eric and the boys. I miss your stupid goats. I miss the soccer games and the celebrations we created for the boys after they scored a goal. I miss Carter's smile and his obsession with goat videos. Ashton's freckles and his competitiveness. And Weston's baby blues and tenderheartedness. I miss hearing them say Wani and playing catch in your living room. I miss your family. I miss our family. I miss the life that was stolen. I miss a life that was stolen from us for reasons that we can't yet fully understand.
That was, I think, the saddest defense witness. Like I said, it was sort of like the saddest moment for me. Kouri finally cries. I think that was some real emotion from Kouri. She didn't show that when her little boy's statements were being read. I do believe that she and Ronnie were or are very close. I mean, he's written in the infamous walking the dog letter, and do believe he really supports her and loves her. And it's a very human moment for the defense. And then, though, I like that he painted this picture of backyard chaos and rough housing, and Eric getting annoyed because Kouri wasn't competitive enough. And then Ronnie, he then kind of pivoted to defending Kouri, though. And this is when he said, we don't know what happened to Eric, but Kouri had nothing to do with it, he states. And everyone knows that, he states. Bold statement, very bold statement, considering Kouri has been convicted. He accused the prosecution of failing to prove the case and said the injustice from the courtroom would eventually be corrected. Take a listen.
We don't, with 100% certainty, know what happened to Eric. No one does, but we do know with 100% certainty that it wasn't caused by you. We know that, the police know it, the prosecution knows it, and everyone watching this trial knows it. They could not prove their theory, just the opposite, and yet here we are. For some reason, unbeknownst to us, really bad things happen to really good people, Court, and you were just really too good of a person, I guess. I promised Dad a long time ago that I'd always look after you, Mom, and I intend on keeping that promise. We will get through this together, and the injustice that's occurred here in this courtroom, it'll be righted in time. Your innocence will shine too brightly to be contained once you've actually had a fair shot at defending yourself. When the day comes, I just know somehow that you're going to change a lot of lives that really need your help. Until then, little sister, just know.
Ronnie ended by telling Kouri he was standing by her side no matter what. And then defense attorney Alex Ramos addressed the court. Ramos, here we go, Alex Ramos. Ramos said he disagreed with the verdict. Once again, the defense not holding back, even though the verdict has been handed down guilty. He disagreed with the verdict, but respected the jury's decision because the rule of law still had to matter even in painful moments. And then he brought religion into his remarks, and he brought it in heavy. He starts by saying, quote, as a Catholic, he said, there is one authority higher than any courtroom or government power, and that is God. And then Ramos quoted Pope Francis saying, quote, life without parole was essentially a death sentence disguised as something else because it extinguishes hope. Ramos said true justice is measured by how we preserve humanity, even when mercy is difficult. And after that, the defense brought in people who had survived horrific crimes themselves. This was an interesting move on the defense's part, bringing in people who were victims of horrific crimes. The first was a woman whose son had been murdered in a random act of violence 30 years ago. The woman made clear that she was not criticizing Eric's family or telling them how to grieve. But she said the criminal justice system needed more humanity and more mercy. She explained that her son's killer spent nearly 2 decades in maximum security prison, but eventually became one of the best people she knew. Wow. Shocking thing to hear about someone who murdered your son. She said the man later apologized to her, and that forgiveness deepened over time. Her entire message was that people can transform, and life without parole destroys the possibility of that transformation. And honestly, take away the sentencing of Kouri Richins, it's a touching story, I admit. God bless her. Then came a letter from a former prosecutor who once supported harsh sentencing himself. The prosecutor described handling a murder case where the defendant received a severe sentence, and years later, while visiting a prison, the prosecutor learned the victim's family had actually reconciled with the inmate and wanted help getting him parole. But the man later died by suicide after being falsely accused of improperly accessing a prison computer system. The former prosecutor said sentences without parole should be reserved only for the most extreme crimes. And again, the defense trying to convince the judge that keeping hope alive mattered more than a permanent punishment. And then a woman named Emery appeared over WebEx. Emery explained that when she was 13 years old, her father murdered her mother while she and her brother were in the next room. Whew. Yeah. She said that at the time she wanted her father locked away forever because she feared him and feared for her safety. Family members raised her after the murder, but years later, when she turned 18, she chose to visit her father in prison. She described how he apologized. They cried, they hugged, and then she said something incredibly powerful. She said, in all these stories, they're like the defense is really pulling on the emotions. She said, he killed my mother, but I still needed my dad. That's big. That's whoa. Emery explained that over time she learned forgiveness and compassion. Some years she visited him in prison, some years she did not. Her father eventually died in prison last year just before turning 81 years old. She said she was not telling her story to pressure anyone into forgiveness. That's good, because not everyone needs to forgive, but simply to say people can change. And then she addressed Eric and Kouri's boys directly. I thought this was an interesting move too. I don't know how I feel about her directly addressing them, but she said she told them to hold tightly to the good memories of their father and maybe someday even memories of their mother too. She urged them to not let hate live in their hearts. After Emery finished, Wendy Lewis gave what was basically the defense's final major sentencing argument. She said that sentencing is supposed to consider the entirety of a person, not just the worst thing they've ever done. That is true. She said if someone treated dogs the way life without parole inmates are treated, locked down 23 hours a day, the dogs would be taken away. Interesting argument when we just heard about how Kouri allegedly treated animals in the house. Nonetheless, Lewis argued that life without parole should be reserved for the worst of the worst and said Kouri did not belong in that category. She even started comparing Kouri's case to other Utah murder cases and noted that there were only a small number of spouse killers serving life without parole. This is true, by the way, especially without additional child victims. Lewis argued that some people who committed what she considered even more horrific crimes received lighter sentences. And then she attacked the prosecution's sentencing memorandum directly. Again, we covered that. The link should be in chat in the description of this episode once we've ended. She said that it contained falsehoods and unproven allegations, including statements involving the boys and their life insurance policies. Lewis claimed that Kouri had only just learned that some policies were still active and would cancel them now that she knew. And then Lewis pushed back against the prosecution portraying Kouri as irredeemable. And that was a big word in the sentencing memorandum. Even I was like, damn, when I read that she was irredeemable. It is a very loaded word. She said Kouri had remorse and regret, even while maintaining her innocence. Lewis then made a very personal statement. She said that this was the first convicted client in her entire legal career, and she has had a long legal career, that she genuinely believed was innocent. So now you know. If you wondered, yes, Wendy Lewis absolutely believes that Kouri Richins is innocent. And not only does she believe that Kouri Richins is innocent, the first one in her entire legal career, she believes Kouri is innocent. Huge, very huge thing to say for an attorney publicly after the verdict. She talked about speaking with Kouri over the past 2 years and said Kouri always asked about the well-being of others during phone calls. Take a listen.
The testimony of these individuals revealed that Kouri is so much more than what she has been portrayed as in this case. Everyone who was around her says she was a wonderful mother, just like Eric was a wonderful father. The state argues that she shows no remorse. Kouri has remorse and she has regrets about many things, and you're going to hear some of those when she speaks. However, she cannot show remorse over something she did not do. She maintains her innocence and has every right to do so. Having said that, however, she stands before this court today convicted of the crimes charged, and she fully understands them. So sentence her on what she was convicted on, not what the prosecution says about her character. As much as they think they know her, they do not. They do not know Kouri Richins. Like Alex said, we're saddened by this case. We are saddened by the verdict. I respect the court system so much. I come from a family of judges and attorneys and was raised with the utmost respect for our justice system. I disagree with the verdict, but I respect it. I have to say though, in all the years of practicing, which are now quite a few, this is the first time I've had a client convicted that I believe to be innocent. It was much more painful than I would have anticipated. Over the last 2 years, our team has got to know Kouri. Kouri is one of those clients, very few clients, and I've represented thousands of people. Most of them you don't remember. Many of them you don't like. Many of them, some of them, you feel are dangerous. But Kouri is different. Kouri, every time she calls, asks how we are. There have been times when I've shared bits of my life with Kouri, particularly having children that lost their father before age 10.
Lewis then started talking about sentencing specifics. She argued the state's request for consecutive sentences would abuse the judge's discretion and said the sentences should run concurrently. She said that Kouri had no prior criminal history. She's been active in her community as a mother, a friend, and volunteer. She said there is no reason to hold her in prison for life, Lewis said. And then came one of the defense's biggest emotional arguments. Quote, a sentence that allows for parole is a sentence that allows for a path to forgiveness, end quote. Lewis acknowledged the boy's pain, but also argued that people change over time. And she said if one day the boys ever wanted a relationship with Kouri again, a parole-eligible sentence would at least leave open the possibility of that. Lewis argued life without parole sends a message that there is no hope. And by the end of her remarks, it was very clear the defense was not necessarily trying to win over the public. They were speaking directly to Judge Mrazek, which makes sense. This is what matters as the judge, trying to convince Judge Mrazek that leaving some possibility of future redemption mattered for Kouri Richins. Lewis then finished, and the courtroom took another recess before Kouri herself would finally speak. Right away, when Kouri took the podium, she turned her focus to her sons. She started with, my sweet baby boys. Let's watch this statement together.
My sweet baby boys. I know that today you don't want to speak to me, have a relationship with me, or you may think you hate me, and that's okay. I will never be angry at you for your feelings. When the day comes that you're ready, I will be here for you, waiting for you, and loving you. But I need you boys to know and understand that I have been desperately trying to get in contact with you any way that I can for years. that all of my communication has been completely cut off from you since early 2024. And now I will use any opportunity I can to get a message to you. Even if that means sharing it publicly to the world, fully restrained, in my jail clothes, in one of the most horrible situations possible. I don't care, and I'm not embarrassed or ashamed by any of it. All I care about is you boys. I will do whatever it takes for you to hear the truth from me and to come home to you. For the time being, I don't know when that is or when my next opportunity will be. So for now, bear with me as I have tried to consolidate everything I've wanted to share with you for the last few years, with everything I want you to know until I'm able to speak to you again in one long message. And although you may not be ready to hear it today, that's okay. My hope is one day you will be. May 6th of 2024, temporary custody was transferred from the state of Utah Child Services to your Aunt Katie and Uncle Clint. My last video call with you boys was several weeks prior to that, around April 24th, 2024, when you were still in the state's custody. Once temporary custody was transferred to Katie and Clint, against my wishes, they cut off all of my communication between you boys and I. It was years before I would ever have a trial. I warned social services that if they gave custody of you to the Richins family, it would be the last time I would be able to see or speak to you boys again. And your opinion of me in this case and wild allegations would soon mirror those of the Richins family. And that's exactly what happened. You need to know the dark side of the family fought a long, hard battle for custody, but was eventually ignored and denied. Since temporary custody was granted to Katie and Clint, they have not allowed me to see or speak to you. No more video calls, no more visits. They blocked the phone number for the jail so I can't call you. Birthday cards, Christmas cards, the letters I would send you boys, they were all returned or rerouted. All of my contact was cut off more than 2 years ago. So please ask them. Please ask them for your cards, for your letters, if I tried calling you. Please just ask them, whether it's now or in 10 years. The one thing I need you boys to know is I did not abandon you. I did not just walk out of your lives one day to never return, to never call, to never show up. Regardless of what anyone tells you, I would never ever leave you boys. And I am so sorry if for even 1 second you thought that I did. If for even 1 second you thought that I didn't love you. Because that couldn't be further from the truth. You boys are my world. The reason I continue to wake up every day and fight to come home. You're my reason for living. I understand that you're in a difficult situation, mentally, emotionally, and physically. I understand you guys have been through an extremely difficult time this past 4 years. You should never have to deal with such tragedy, and I am so sorry that you were going through this. You boys have the right to be angry and sad and confused, feel in survival mode, have questions. All of this is completely valid. Your feelings are completely valid. And one day when this is all over, we can sit down and talk about all of this and sort it all out. And I promise you boys, one day it will be over. I'm not perfect. I have succeeded and I have failed. As a person, as a wife, as a parent, we all do. I have done plenty of things I am not proud of. Some I regret, some I don't. Some I'm ashamed of, and some I'm not. I regret things I have done right in my life to later find out they were for the wrong people. I have said things I shouldn't have. I've done things I shouldn't have. Sometimes I haven't said what I should or not meant what I did say. There are things I can't change and long overdue apologies that I owe. There are would-haves and could-haves and should-haves. We all have them. We have all done them. And you boys will too one day, but in your own way. And that's okay. That's life, and we're human. Nobody is all good or all bad. We just get portrayed that way. You're going to succeed and achieve amazing things in this life. You're also going to make mistakes and fail at some things. But use those opportunities to grow and to learn. They do not define you, and don't ever let other people make you think that they do. We are not defined by our best or our worst moments. We fall somewhere in the middle, ever evolving. And you boys are ever evolving. Secrets diminish self-respect. They lose trust. They make us lose ourselves. I fell in love with someone who wasn't your dad. Your dad fell in love with someone who wasn't me. I did things behind your dad's back. He did things behind mine. Don't keep secrets. Always put your spouse first. Your dad and I didn't always do this, but don't be like us in that aspect. We made mistakes that I know I regret, and I'm sure if he were here today, he would say that there are a few things he regrets as well. Marriage is hard. Marriage takes work. Marriage takes love. Big love. Deep love. And you may think about divorce and you will have fights, but then you will make up and you will forgive each other. Because when your love is enough, your love keeps you together. Your love is all you need to ignore the noise. Your love never fails. Sometimes your dad would want to throw in the towel on our marriage, or I would want to throw in the towel on our marriage, but we never did. We always found our way back to each other. I would pick up his towel, or he would pick up mine. We'd hand them back to each other and start again. Because our love never failed. We stopped keeping track of each other's wrongdoings, and we forgave, and we moved on, and we loved. And if I had to relive all of those hard days all over again, I would do it without question. Your dad and I were a lot of things, a mess of sorts sometimes. But we were this crazy, beautiful mess that made us a family, because our love was enough. Our hard days never outweighed our good days. Our weak moments never outweighed our most memorable happy days. We always laughed more than we cried. We failed at some things, but we never failed at loving you boys. Our love was enough to make our house a home. Our love was enough to stay together, to raise you boys. Our love was enough to forgive each other when others said that we shouldn't. To do things for each other others may disagree with. Our love was enough to protect each other, even though it may cost us everything. Love can make you lose yourself. Sometimes it makes you do things you know you shouldn't, but knowing it's not wrong at the same time. Because your spouse is your person, your love is enough. One day, you will meet someone and fall in love and understand that just your love is enough. Enough to withstand everything else, the noise of the world, the obstacles, the trials of marriage, the heartache, bad choices, forgiveness. You will understand your love is enough and your love never fails. Don't worry about what others think about your relationship. Don't worry if they would do things differently. You just love. And you love big, and you love deep, and you protect your love. Your dad and I didn't have it all together. Together, we really did have it all. Because we had you three. Don't let anyone choose the direction of your life by their opinions and their judgments. Being able to hold yourself together in the worst of situations doesn't make you emotionless. Separating personal and business life and emotions doesn't make you unreasonable. Resentment can get the best of others. Don't let it get the best of you. People will always have a lot to say about lives they've never lived. Live your life the way you choose to live it. Just be safe and be healthy and be happy. That's all that matters. Sometimes people will want you to believe that life is simply black and white. The situations are black and white, but they're not. Life, situations, they're full of color. At the very least, shades of gray. Always question the color, even if you're only questioning the gray areas. Keep an open mind. Question situations and stay curious. You will have some people in your life tell you how their love for you is unconditional. But once your most private life has been revealed, you quickly find out just how conditional their love actually was. Choose the people you hold close to your heart wisely. And always be the friend that walks into somebody's life when everyone else chooses to walk out. Always remember, the only people you owe your loyalty to are those people who never made you question theirs. Every day you wake up, you get a second chance at life. To do whatever you want. Be whoever you want. To succeed in all your dreams. Take the day and run with it. It's a blessing. Don't take it for granted. Sometimes you'll have hard days when all you want to do is count all the ways things are going wrong or have gone wrong in your life. In that moment, stop, take a minute, take a step back, take a breath, and switch your thinking to count all the ways that it has gone right. All the good that has come to you, boys. All the grace, the blessings, and the love. Remember that anyone can give up on something. That's the easy way out. True strength comes when everyone is expecting you to fall apart, but you hold it together, persevering through the hardest of times. Always persevere. Always prove them wrong. Because you boys don't give up, and you boys will never quit. There's always going to be someone out there ready to tear you down, misrepresent you, lie about you, tell half-truths, and judge you. They will judge you on decisions you do or don't make, what you did or didn't do, what you did or didn't say. They will take out of context and twist your words. They will judge you on your emotions or the way you grieve. You may show too much emotion, you may not show enough. They will tell you you're not grieving correctly, you're too angry, you're too sad, you're holding it together too well or not well enough, or maybe you're too ambitious. They will judge you on your demeanor, if you cry, if you don't cry, if you don't do anything at all. And all of this will get misinterpreted into something that it's not, formed by the opinions of who's ever creating it. And then silence is also too often misinterpreted and misjudged. But when people behave that way, it has much more to do with them personally than it does you. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. It doesn't make it true. Remember who you are and what you stand for, the truth, and ignore the noise. Ignore their noise. Ignore their egos, their entitlement, and their biased judgment. Those who abuse the power and the positions they hold will have a higher power to report to one day, and that higher power holds the final truth, their final truth. Don't ever let someone tell you how to show emotion, how you're supposed to react to any given situation. Don't care what others think about you, what others say about you. Just let them talk. Just be you, be yourself, Be authentic, be genuine, because those who truly know you, who truly love you, is all you need. Forgive those who turn their back on you, but never forget. Don't hold hate in your heart toward others. It only brings you down more than it does them. Apologize when you're wrong, even if that apology is long overdue. You can't change what you can't change, and you can't change the past. But you can take accountability when you mess up. Admit when you make a mistake, even when it's embarrassing or humiliating, even when it can ruin relationships, careers, or your integrity. Be honest with yourself and those you need to. But never apologize for something you didn't do. Never admit to something you didn't do. And never beg for mercy for something you didn't do. Don't take the easy way out. Always stand up for what's right, even if you find yourself standing alone or with a small group of people that love you. Believe in yourself and be brave. Never give up on your fight, no matter how long it takes, months, even years. Never give up on truth, justice, and the fight of corruption. When something is broken, fix it. When something doesn't make sense, question it. If money is paying for it, follow the money. Your brothers are your best friends. Your dad and I raised you boys that if you cared about nothing else in this world, you care about each other. Your brothers will always be there for you. They will always be your brothers. You love them. You protect them. You take care of each other. Be like your dad. Be generous. Be charitable. Stay humble. Give when you have too much. Give more than you take. Help when others are in need. Serve your community. Be like your dad. Never stop learning through education, through people, through travel, culture, through business and friends. From your success and achievements, from your mistakes and failures. Be like your dad. Love the outdoors. Find your peace, your therapy, your heart and soul on the top of a mountain somewhere where it's quiet, where it's calm, where you will be able to feel the spirits of those that you love and miss the most. Be like your dad. Laugh. Laugh often. Laugh loud. Laugh when you want to cry. Laugh when you're mad. Have that laugh that everyone recognizes and no one will ever forget. Even when you're gone. Be like your dad. Love your family. Through the good, the bad, the disagreements, the back and forth arguments. Choose forgiveness. Choose love. Choose happiness. Be a loyal brother. Be a noble son. Be like your dad. hobbies that bring you excitement and joy, that give you a break from life, but build your life full of people and family who you love and that love you. Build a family that makes you happy to come home to every day, with a career that makes you hold your head high. Be the friend everyone wants to be friends with, the dad that everyone wishes they had. Be like your dad. As your parents, your dad and I wanted to give you every opportunity or choice that we didn't have. We would do anything for you boys, or break our backs falling over obstacles and finding our way to be sure you had the best of the best. Even if we didn't always do it well, or have the right answers, or the words, we would give you everything that we had. But the one thing I can't give you boys are the answers that you want the most. Because I can't give you something that I don't have. An explanation that I just don't know. I've never lost a son. I've never lost one of my brothers, a nephew, or a best friend. But I did grow up with a single mother, and I have lost my father. I do know what it's like to wonder, what if Dad could have watched me graduate college, walk me down the aisle, be there for the birth of one of you boys? If only Dad were here. I do know what that's like. The lifetime of pain that brings, the sadness and the anger. I would never wish that upon anyone. Especially you boys. Diamond sweet babies. It's a lifetime of what ifs and if onlys. An empty hole in your heart where your dad's supposed to be. He's supposed to fill. He's supposed to walk through life with you, with us, with our family. I do know what that's like. So murder, an attempted murder, 4 years later. And it's still hard for me to say those words out loud. They get caught in my throat. I turn my stomach. And I try to avoid them as much as possible. Because it makes me physically sick to think about. But still to this day, I can't believe this is real sometimes. That this is our life. That this is my life. Convicted of taking one of the people out of my life who killed it the most. My husband, the father of my children, still in shock and still in disbelief. Accused and now convicted of such a heinous crime. Potentially costing me to never see you boys again. I just lost both of their parents, and there's no textbook answer on how or what we're supposed to do, how I'm supposed to react or move forward. And I'm so sorry you boys are being pulled through the middle of this. It's absolute chaos. Between two families fighting that both love you so very much. Trust and assets, our home, none of it matters. You boys are what matter. Your safety, your health, mentally, emotionally, all of that should be being prioritized. I will and have always prioritized your safety. I am your mother, and that is my job. And for anyone to scare you otherwise is just cruel and heartless. I'm sorry that 8 people from a jury who have never met you or me or our family have the right to determine our future. And they did that in less than 3 hours. In a perfect world, there might be justice. But in a perfect world, nothing ever goes wrong. Tragedies don't happen. Some think a verdict or the sentencing will be the answer that they seek or that they need, but it won't. It will only give them something else to think about for a while. It may help to disperse some of their hurt or their resentment, but it won't relieve it. This grief will outlive us all. The hundreds of lives that this has affected. The lifelong trauma you boys have suffered this last 4 years will outlive us all. You haven't had to just endure losing one parent, but losing two. And no child should ever have to go through that. Especially when one was an unforeseen tragedy, and the other based on injustice and a system we're supposed to trust. Your dad's memory will always be the kind that's a physical hurt. The tightening in your chest when you think of him, particularly on days like today, his birthday, because he was so loved that no verdict or sentence will ever be able to release that kind of suffering. I'm broken without your dad. I'm broken without you boys. God did not put me in this world to take a life. God put me in this world to give life, your lives. And I don't know who or what I'm supposed to be if it's not a mother. Your mother. And as much as you've been influenced into thinking that Dad was murdered, that I took your dad from you, that is completely wrong and an absolute lie. And the thought of that is still as absurd today as it was 4 years ago. And just because someone may not be perfect, that's a far reach for them to be capable of murder. To kill someone, our someone. Your dad was in physical pain, a lot of physical pain. And just because some people didn't know or didn't want to see certain things, doesn't mean they weren't happening or they weren't true. He would have never left us intentionally. And I would have never taken him from you, from us. He was the glue that held us all together, that made us, us. Every little boy needs their father. Because he's supposed to teach you the things that I could never explain. He's supposed to teach you and do things with you that only a dad can do. And only he could give you those life lessons between a father and a son. I would have never taken that from you boys. I know how much you need him, how much you love him, how much you aspire to be just like him. And I would have never taken that from you. And I'm so sorry that I can't bring him back. For you, for me, for our family. I can beat myself up all day about how I could have been a better person or made better personal choices. And I can understand and accept you boys being upset about those things. But murder? No, absolutely not. I will not accept that. And I will not be blamed for something I did not do. I will appeal and fight these charges no matter how long it takes Not because I have anything to prove to this court, to the state, to the Richins family, or to the world, but I do have something to prove to you three. I do care what you boys think, and I need you boys to know the truth. And because of that, I will never quit or give up on this fight for justice, the truth, and coming home to you. So please, I know that right now you may not believe me, that you believe I took Dad from you, and that's okay. I still and will always love you, and I'm asking that you please just don't give up on me. I'm coming home, not today, not this year, but we're going to make this right. Our justice system will get this right, although this courtroom can't seem to. We have a long road ahead, but I will never quit fighting my way home to you boys. I love you more than these words could ever express. I loved you before I ever met you. And I will love you long after I'm not here to say it. And every minute of every day, I miss you boys more and more. And I think about how much I wish I could be with you, that this nightmare would go away, and we could have our family back. This entire situation isn't fair to anyone, but it's especially not fair to you three. And you boys are all that matters. I want to remind you just how strong you are, that you are loved by so many, and I am beyond proud of you, of everything you have overcome, everything you have achieved, and how much you bring into this world. You boys have been through so much, and I wish I could take away all your sadness and all your pain. Tell you how much Dad and I love you, and that everything's going to be okay. I wish I could count the freckles in your little cheeks. Read you books before bed. And help you with all your homework. I wish I could help you through your toughest nights. And hear your laugh through your happiest days. But for now, that's just not the way it is. You have to be strong. You have to remember that our strength grows in these moments when we don't think we can go on. But we keep going on anyway, because we have to push through these hard days. Because in the end, at the end of this war, it will be so worth it. But I need you boys to always keep pushing through these hard days, because this will come to an end. I just need you to hang in there. Listen to your little hearts. Listen to your little bellies for the truth. Before you were told who to be and what to believe, remember who you are. Remember who we are. Remember our family. I will continue to call you every day, even if my calls are blocked. Just so you know that I'm here. I've always been here. And I will always be here. My cards, my letters, they will never stop. I will never stop. I love you forever, Mom.
I'm glad that we could do that all together. That was painful. We did a poll. Do you guys think that this long statement helped or hurt her? 80% of you, more than 80% of you, believe that it hurt her. You know, I don't think it helped her. I actually thought that the defense actually did a decent job putting on their defense, bringing in hope and redemption and humanizing her, admitting that they too believe that they feel she is innocent. Not the worst thing ever, especially if she's going to state in her own statement that she believes she is innocent. Her attorneys are getting behind her before she does that, setting the stage. You know, I agree with a lot of your sentiments in chat. I did share a few comments as well. A lot of it sounded like walking down the aisles of Hobby Lobby, or reading your junior high yearbook signatures, or those 2003 email forwards you'd get with sunset photos. A lot of live, laugh, love, turn a lemonade or lemons into lemonade kind of a thing. Nothing wrong with those, but it was a lot of them. A lot of them. Like 48 minutes of them. Letters from complete strangers, So, it was like, as I pointed out, like the vinyl lettering companies were transcribing quickly so that they could get some things in for their 2027 line. Okay, so moving past the few of the snarky comments, but we did all just survive that together, and I believe in dark humor sometimes to survive things that are painful. I do think that a lot of her emotion was real. I think she certainly wanted to talk to her sons well over the judge. She didn't spend too much time asking for a lighter sentence or asking the judge for forgiveness. She focused on talking to her sons. And I do believe that she misses her sons. I do believe that she wishes she could bring their father back. I do wishes that she could bring the family back. I also believe that she is guilty of the things that make her wish for the past to come back, that she is the one that changed it. I also thought it was interesting that she brought up trying to connect to her boys by saying, I understand what it's like to not have a dad. I didn't have one either. That was a rough one for me. One of them was murdered, according to the verdict, and by you, it wasn't a choice. And I also wonder what my co-host, Dr. John Matthias, thinks of that line. If there's something psychological in there, she grew up without a dad, and now her boys will too, because of her. We'll certainly be asking Dr. John to weigh in. So, and possibly on Patreon too. I know. Thank you to all of our wonderful Patreon members, by the way, who are hanging in with us, as we have not posted as often, but you guys are the best. Thank you. We're going to be talking on there soon. But with that, after that, and Judge Mrazek, I respect that he just let her talk. But then with that, Judge Mrazek, without batting an eye, just sentenced Kouri Richins. She just got up and sentenced her after that. Sentenced Kouri Richins to life in prison without the possibility of parole. And afterward, defense attorney Kathy Nestor said that they plan to appeal. Our pizza just arrived. Do you want to go grab it real quick? Oh, okay. Well, really quickly, Kathy Nestor said they plan to appeal and requested for a new trial. She asked for 90 days to file motions to travel to other issues. So we will take a listen to that. But prosecutors objected, and they pointed out Utah laws normally allow only 14 days. But Judge Mrazek compromised, and he extended the deadline to 28 days, but said that any further extension request would still need to be filed within the initial 14-day period. And, it was fascinating. It was also interesting, I'll just say, seeing all three of her attorneys standing by her, supporting her. They said it was an honor to stand by her. They said that they believe she is innocent. Despite all of that, Judge Mrazek sentenced Kouri Richins to life behind bars without parole. And just like that, one of the most watched and emotionally charged cases in Utah and the nation came to an end with a sentence that ensures Kouri will spend the rest of her life in prison, although the appeals will come. The appeals will come. So take a listen to this.
Having considered the gravity and circumstances of the offenses for which Ms. Richins has been convicted, the number of victims, and available information regarding the history, character, and rehabilitative needs of the defendant, the court hereby orders that the sentences on counts 2 through 5 shall run consecutively to each other and to the sentence imposed on count 1. Moreover, the court exercises its discretion and chooses to impose no fines related to any sentence in this case. The court addresses the 5 counts on which Ms. Richins was convicted in reverse order. Ms. Richins, based on your conviction on count 5, third-degree felony forgery, the court hereby sentences you to an indeterminate prison term not to exceed 5 years. Based on your conviction on count 4, second-degree felony insurance fraud, the court hereby sentences you to an indeterminate prison term of not less than 1 and not more than 15 years. Based on your conviction on count 3, second-degree felony insurance fraud, the court hereby sentences you to an indeterminate prison term of not less than 1 and not more than 15 years. Based on your conviction on count 2, first-degree felony attempted aggravated murder, the court hereby sentences you to an indeterminate prison term of not less than 5 years, and that may be for life. Which brings us to the final issue, the appropriate sentence for count 1. Under Utah Code 76-3-207.7, there are only 2 options: an indeterminate prison term of not less than 25 years, and that may be for life, or life in prison without parole. And the law requires that the court consider each option. Under a sentence of 25 to life, and considering the effect of the 4 consecutive sentences, the time that Ms. Richins has spent in custody, and the current practices of the Board of Pardons and Parole, Ms. Richins would likely serve approximately 30 years in the Utah State Prison before receiving her first parole hearing. By that time, she would be 66 years old. Under a sentence of life in prison without parole, Ms. Richins would be in prison for the rest of her natural life, unless the Board of Pardons and Parole determines by clear and convincing evidence at some future point that she is permanently incapable of being a threat to the safety of society, at which time the board would have the authority to release her. Under either scenario, Ms. Richins will be incapacitated, meaning structurally prevented from harming anyone outside the Utah State prison system for at least the next 3 decades, and perhaps much longer. But the potential impact on the survivors of the tragedy created by Kouri Richins, most importantly, Eric Richins' 3 sons, is more difficult to predict. On one hand, if the court sentences Ms. Richins to life without parole, one or more of those young men may come to resent that the court eliminated any opportunity they might have in the future, decades into the future, to express an opinion as adults with substantial life experience about whether their mother should, for example, be allowed to die with dignity. On the other hand, if the court sentences Ms. Richins to 25 to life, one or more of those young men may spend the next 30 years questioning why the court failed to protect them from the prospect of the person who murdered their father being released from prison at some time in the distant future, perhaps when they have families and children of their own. The court's contemplation of how those young men may come to feel about today's decision some 30 years from now comes from a place of genuine concern for them and humility regarding the court's inability to predict the future. Sitting here today, it is simply not possible for anyone, not even those young men, to know how their view of this case may evolve over the next several decades. My hope is that every person affected by Eric Richins' death will, over time, find their way to a state of peace. As for today, the court's duty is to make a decision, a weighty, long-lasting decision based on the best information available today. And the bottom line is this: Kouri Richins was convicted unanimously and beyond a reasonable doubt of attempting to murder Eric Richins, her husband, and the father of their 3 children. And then, having failed in her first effort of spending the next 17 days, not changing course, but doubling down, preparing to try again, and ultimately completing the act through the administration of poison. And for what? Money. All for pecuniary gain. A person convicted of committing that sequence of acts in that way, and for that reason, and who causes the absolute tragedy that has befallen Eric Richins' sons and family. A person convicted of those things is simply too dangerous to ever be free. Accordingly, Ms. Richins, based on your conviction on count 1, first-degree felony aggravated murder, the court hereby sentences you to life without parole. You have the right to an appeal. You must file a notice of appeal within 30 days. You have the right to be represented by counsel on appeal. Mr. Bloodworth, anything further?
No, Your Honor.
Ms. Lewis, Ms. Nestor.
Well, and there you go. Just like that. Before we end, we did order pizza. Thank you from our not sponsor, Papa John's. You ordered cheese. You wouldn't let me get Hawaiian, would you? So we have the cheese and wings. No Hawaiian. She's very anti-pineapple. But thank you, Grayson. Anti-pineapple on pizza. I know. It's like you either are pro or anti. Again, there's another thing that's not a Venn diagram. You either are okay with pineapple on pizza or you're not. It's sort of like you either think Kouri Richins is, a monster or a saint, or at least in today's sentencing. So, people also mentioned, though, before we go, a couple more things. People did mention that she will, likely she'll be in prison with Jody Hildebrandt and Ruby Franke. It's interesting. Jody Hildebrandt also likes, nice sayings like Kouri does. Maybe they can start okay, I'll stop while I'm ahead. It's getting late. So no more bad jokes. All right. I can tell it's getting late when I start saying inappropriate things. We're going to go grab some pizza, but our head of HR, Lily Bell, she celebrated her birthday yesterday. It was a very big deal, and we wanted to share it with you. For those of you that watch our channel, and you often see the sleeping dog behind me that you guys think is AI because she doesn't move. It's incredible. I know. She loves to sleep and chill, unless it's her birthday. That is a real smile, by the way. Look at that. That is her getting... I cooked that meal for her. She is the sweetest. So we all celebrated her. She got some new toys since we're revamping the office space. I became a beige mom and was like, only beige toys since they're all over the place. She loves her toys. But yeah, so there you go. That's Lily Bell. We celebrated 6 years of Lily Bell yesterday. We're so grateful that Grayson has actually brought Lily Bell into our lives. So we got both of them when we hired Grayson. So she's a sweetheart and is the cutest. So she is precious. We love our Lily. And that's it. And then we are doing something special this weekend that we'll tell you more about later. Forgive the teases, but I always tell you guys after, so you'll know soon. And Patreon episode is also coming soon. It's just good to be live and good to be live without a cough. Thank you to those that are cheering me on. Cough-free episode. Thank you everyone for your support. Thank you for liking this episode. Thank you for supporting our channel. It means a lot. Thank you for supporting our work here. We couldn't do it without you. So thank you. Hit subscribe, hit notifications, because we have some really, really exciting things coming, including we're going to have a fascinating interview coming up later this week. Yeah, this week. Yeah. I can't even remember the date. So that's a little teaser. I do believe that the prison system should be humanized a bit more. There should be more redemption, more hope, more about people being redeemable. And we will have an episode that talks a little bit more like that. It's an interview with someone that's going to be just, it's a fascinating interview. And I want to thank everyone for their super chats and generosity in buying gifts, Hidden True Crime gift memberships. Thank you. I appreciate that. So at the end of the day, I just want to say, because I did get a little bit snarky to survive Kouri Richins' long-winded statement, but I do want to say that overall, this is just ultimately very, very sad nobody wins in this situation. It's sad. And maybe I agreed with Kouri when she said, I wish that I could bring your dad back and bring our family back. Yeah, I wish she could too. I wish we didn't have to cover this. I wish Eric could be celebrating his 44th birthday with his family today, and especially his little boys. I wish that her little boys had a mother and a father. I wish that this could be traditions, and her brother Ronnie could still be woken up on Christmas morning by his nephews. And it's just ultimately incredibly heartbreaking. So I hope that everyone will be able to heal and find a pathway forward. So it's heartbreaking. All right. We'll see you, everyone. Thank you for spending the evening with us. We really appreciate it. And we'll talk to you soon again. So hit notifications, hit subscribe. Things are coming. We'll see you. Bye-bye.